Good day. This is James Spencer of Spencer Artist Development and Intuitive Wholeness, located in Long Beach, California, in the Bluff Park area near the ocean. And I offer a plethora of services to clients 18 and older in the U.S., either at my home studio here in Long Beach or online. In the healing and intuitive arts. So I offer such things as clinical hypnotherapy sessions, past life regression sessions. I also offer psychic and tarot and divination readings. And I also offer certification courses in metaphysics, which include psychic development, tarot, astrology, handwriting analysis, hypnotism, and also a 3-month course to get certified as a clinical hypnotherapist. So before I start, a little bit about my background. So I came from a very artistic musical family, grew up in Huntington Beach, California, and as a child competed in international piano competitions, performed all over the U.S. With different bands and so forth. Went on to get my bachelor's and master's joint degrees in voice and piano from Cal State Fullerton. Received my bachelor's in '92, my master's in '95. And in addition to that, also I have a early music performance diploma from the University of Victoria, Canada, in harpsichord and early music. And I went on I was always fascinated by metaphysics, and as a child studied astrology, numerology, got into tarot. And in my high school years, I worked as a psychic at a local metaphysical bookstore in Newport Beach. And around that time is when I got into professional studies in metaphysics. And in 2006, I graduated with honors from Hypnosis Motivation Institute in Tarzana, California, where I received my diploma in clinical hypnotherapy with specialization in past life and regression therapy, timeline therapy, Kappasian hypnosis, Eriksonian hypnosis. And also during those years, I became a Reiki master, and I also became a plant-based nutritionist, and so forth. And so anyway, as you know, with the world changes currently, and also if you're aware of the astrological shifts in the solar system, there is what feels like a lot of anarchy, power games, drama around the planet. But also what's happening is there's a spiritual awakening, and that's something I assist people with. So today what I would like to do is talk about my sessions with past life regression and how they work, and to answer any questions. Feel free to like my channel, and feel free to leave any questions you might have below, and I can get back with you. Sessions, again, for past life regression are offered either online to U.S. residents 18 and older, or at my studio here at home and in Long Beach, California. And the fees for that are either paid in cash or by Zelle transfer only. I do not accept credit cards. Okay, so let's talk about what is past life and get right into it. Thank you so much. So many ask me, what is a past life? So you've likely asked this question before, perhaps in passing, perhaps with longing. The answer is far more than just reincarnation stories or ancient timelines. A past life, not merely who you are, but a blueprint of energetic patterns shaping who you are now. Many of us walk through life unaware that our deepest fears, repetitive struggles, even the desires we can't explain, all may stem from echoes of other lifetimes. Have you ever feared abandonment without cause? Felt a strange ache of poverty, which you just can't seem to get out of debt, or you lose a job, or you just can't get ahead? Have you ever been drawn to specific eras, cultures, or music you've never studied, but felt that you somehow knew, or that you somehow lived there in the past? Well, these are residues of past lives. These themes that repeat themselves across time, like, motives in a great symphony. For me, a little bit about my background, I had my first past life regression back in my teens with a very well-known hypnotherapist named Dr. Jane Battenberg, who was also sort of my teacher mentor, encouraging me to become a hypnotherapist. And in my, I was always in my high school years in the 1980s obsessed with Egypt. And of course I was the 80s goth boy, but I used to wear Egyptian eyeliner and I loved just everything with Egypt, and had a very deep emotional response to movies about Egypt like the Ten Commandments and Cleopatra and things like that. And also, interestingly enough, in my mother's maternal heritage, I have a grandmother who was an Egyptologist, and my mother looks identical when she was young to the bust of Queen Nefertiti. And we just said, oh, that's mom, like we had a past life in Egypt or something. And it turns out when I traced my family background on my mother's side, which was Galician Spanish, it went back into Greece, it went back into Rome, and it went back all the way to Egypt. Interesting. And I always felt I had connections in Egypt. So in one of my in my first past life regression that I did, what was fascinating is I was a high priest of Egypt who was actually the lover of the pharaoh. And what happened is the government was overthrown and they basically buried me alive in a tomb. What's interesting is at this time in my life as a teenager, I was suffering from incredibly difficult, severe asthma. I was suffering from, bronchitis every winter. I was on inhalers. I was on steroids. I had nasal problems. It just went on and on. And after that past life, I made the connection how that past life was influencing patterns and events in my current life. And I made some changes. And I swear to God, in 1 month, never, ever got asthma back in my life. So that's how powerful these connections can be. So, maybe there's themes that you have in your life that are connecting to past life, such as abandonment issues, poverty consciousness, unexplained illnesses or addictions, or just weird aches in the body, recurring losses. Now, those might be the negatives, but also maybe you have profound talents that are not explained. Musical genius. I have to say that was mine. I always felt connected to Mozart and felt I was actually reincarnated as Mozart. I know that sounds weird, but I could play Mozart fantasias at age 5. I performed my first Mozart concerto at age 12. I've sang the roles of Figaro and Papageno and Die Zauberflöte. And I go, why is this? Why is this so easy for me? I definitely had a connection with Mozart, And some people might have that. They just have a talent that's unexplained, and they're like, where did this start? Or a passion. Another thing is again, we talked about this sort of love for a specific era. Like for me, it is Elizabethan period is one, but my heart is connected to the mystery schools of the Goth and Victorian era. And if you look at my home, like the painting on the wall of Arthur Grimshaw, I'm attracted to London, I'm attracted to metaphysical schools, I'm attracted to Oscar Wilde and that whole period. And it just feels like home for me. And so that's me. And for another person, I did a past life regression yesterday, and she just, I don't understand why I'm just obsessed with the jazz age in New York in the 1920s. And sure enough, she turned out to be a cabaret singer in a speakeasy in the 1920s. And, she always felt like, I want to sing, but I don't think I have any talent. And what's interesting is that jogged her, that past life we did, to go study. And now she's actually singing on a cruise ship. Is that crazy? So she connected to her passion through a past life regression. So this can be really powerful. These imprints are more than just memory. They shape, again, your behavior, your choices, and even your physical DNA. We know now trauma doesn't only live in the mind, it lives in your cells, in your nervous system, the very path of your incarnation. And this is why if you've had a trauma in a past life, you might just have a pattern. Like maybe you were abused by a partner in a past life, and now you're just terrified of a relationship, and you're just like, all men are horrible, or all women are horrible, I always get hurt. And you just set yourself for bad relationship after bad relationship. Or maybe in a past life you really struggled. Maybe you lived in a time where there was famine and you could just never make money. And in this life, no matter how hard you work, you're always in debt. You always lose the job. You're always struggling. And it just goes from one bad thing to another. That's a pattern. Maybe in a lifetime you attract abandonment. That was mine. So I dealt with family members who didn't accept me. I had dealt with, I'm widowed twice in my life. And I had to look at, okay, what's that pattern? Where's that coming from? To start shifting that pattern, okay? And this is the hard work, but it's powerful. So if you're committed to your spiritual sovereignty and your soul's journey, having past life can transform you in many ways. Okay, so what happens to you then? Can you define who you are now from having a past life? Absolutely. But here's the truth. It doesn't have to. This is where past life regression becomes a powerful tool again for your liberation. Through clinical hypnotherapy, we can journey into these memories safely, okay, not as fantasy, but as a vivid emotional truth. And when we find the wounds, whether it's betrayal, an execution, starvation, a vow of silence, we can clear it. We reframe the story after a past life regression. We lift the karmic residue, and often and sometimes miraculous things happen. Miracles happen. One I want to share is I had a lady that had horrible, painful chronic eczema to where she was literally bleeding, just constantly in pain for years. She went to every dermatologist. She went to, every, holistic doctor. Anything she tried, she was on all kinds of medications. Nothing helped. She was in despair. She came to me for a past life regression. We discovered that she was a leper during the time of Jesus. And this karmic residue made her feel dirty. My skin is dirty, blah, blah, blah. We cleared it, and guess what happened? Took 3 months, and she weaned herself off her medication. At month 4, completely over the condition, never got it back. To me, that's a miracle, right? So things happen. Clients find that their lifelong anxieties lift. That was mine. Like I used to suffer from panic disorder after my partner died, and there was things in my life that were difficult, and I finally cleared it, through studying my past life and looking at patterns. Okay. You can forgive someone. That's another aspect, is maybe you're holding on to resentment towards your mother, your father, your husband, your wife, your child. And these can also be karmic connections that play out lifetime after lifetime. So let's clear it, okay? And when we clear this, you're gonna find that the veil opens, and you're gonna find that past, present, and future are one. And specifically now, also with planetary changes on the planet, we can evolved to almost a new species of a person, like literally ascended masters or gods living in the world, attracting exactly what we want to us. And we're coming into the age of Aquarius. What we're seeing, however, in the world right now is the final toxic power games, the lies, the manipulation, sexism, racism, homophobia, all that's playing out. Wars, you're seeing it all now. So it feels horrible. But I want you to understand, this is the catalyst. This needs to happen because it's causing people to take responsibility for their spiritual sovereignty, and it's raising their consciousness. And as their consciousness raises, the whole planetary consciousness raises. Okay, so have faith. Have faith that you are an important soul. And your passions and what you give to the world can really shift energy. Okay, so let's get rid of the block. And because healing is a past life, when you heal yourself, you heal everything around you. You start healing your family, you heal your job, you heal your health, and we can bring back our sovereignty and our personal power to retrieve that part of you that got lost in another age, so you can live more fully in this one. And as a clinical hypnotherapist, I can often sense quickly, is your soul a younger soul? Have you navigated through many incarnations as an old soul? Maybe you go far back as Lemuria or Atlantis. Many of the light workers, including myself on this planet, has had hundreds and hundreds of incarnations. However, I am personally in my last incarnation. I'm not coming back. But that's okay. And some people choose to come back. There's no right or wrong, but we can determine what the soul wants. And are you carrying these traumas again from the ancient world into the past? Are echoes of past decades coming through? Most people, however, reincarnate within their same gender identity, sexual orientation, and ancestral lineage. This is why so many people feel deep connections to their DNA of their ethnicity. For example, with me, I'm a Spencer. I'm actually fifth cousin to Princess Diana. I've always been attracted to England. That's my heritage on my dad's side. And Scotland, English Scottish on my dad's side. And it's interesting that I've had a past life in Victorian England. I had a past life in the court of King James I. I had another life in the court of Queen Elizabeth I. And, there's just and that's my historical lineage too, Also, on my mom's side is Galician Spanish and into France, and I've had a life in Versailles, and so forth. And, and then, so you can just see how our DNA sometimes are clues to our past lives, okay? Even almost like a passport. So it really is in common, though not impossible, for someone, for example, like me, who would have just, ancestral, very deep English lineage, to all of a sudden have a past life in ancient China. Okay? Even though I find Chinese culture very interesting, sometimes we have to, what a clinical hypnotherapist can do is look at the desires and wants and what is real and within the past life, without popping in, suggestions where you are the one that are seeing it in a remote viewing and bringing it out, what's right and what's real and what's wrong. Someone might, here's an example of this. Someone might be like, I'm an Elvis fanatic. I was Elvis in a past life. Probably not, unless there is a lot of indicators. And that's something we determine, with more than one session. So we see patterns from one past life to the next, and see if that is. So yes, there are people that I had, done some really, because I do a lot of the past life regressions to the stars, and I can't list who I work with, but at the same time, I did have one person who's a pretty well-known musical theater artist on Broadway, who actually goes back and had a connection to Jenny Lind, who was a famous opera singer back in the turn of the century with Barnum and Bailey and stuff. And I go, oh, that's an interesting connection. And I actually had one client who was John Adams, believe it or not, our second president. Second president. Yeah, okay. That's pretty interesting. So it can happen, but usually it's rare. I know I have a friend who was actually Mark Twain in a past life, as well as Shakespeare, and this can happen. Okay, but what I do, which is different, is I'm able, also, since I have a doctorate in in music and different things, and a lot of history background, I'm able to look at this, and then we can pop all of your facts from past life into ChatGPT, create a study guide, things that you can continue to investigate for validity. And what I have found, literally 80 to 90% of the time, with things that are on the internet, meaning usually we can trace lineage or things back to the 1700s. So might not be able to get exact facts for someone on a past life in ancient Egypt, but we can definitely look for clues that are factual places, things that pop up for last century, 1800s, 1700s. So like with my past life in the 1800s, I was absolutely able to verify where I lived, what I did, who was around me, and actually even go take a trip to England and to London, where I could, I actually went to where I lived. It was pretty emotional and incredible, because as a kid I was seeing these visions, which I wouldn't, how would I know that when I'm 7 years old? But then I was able to validate my visions. So this is really intense, fascinating, things and so forth. So we can validate, your bloodlines, soul lines, and so forth. So why come for a session? Let's review. Because you're ready to break the patterns that are holding you back. That's number one. So yes, it's fun to do a past life regression, but remember, it's about let's heal you. Let's evolve you, okay? Also, why should we do a session? Because something in you knows there's more to life than what you currently see. It's like the soul whispering to you, it's time. You're not just remembering, you're reclaiming. So I'm James Spencer. This is the Intuitive Wholeness. And if you're ready to journey into your deeper story, I'll be here to guide you in stillness, in safety, in soul. So let's talk a little bit more next on what to expect in a session. So what should you expect in a past life regression, and how should you prepare yourself for that? So, when I do a past life regression, our first regression lasts about 90 minutes. I usually recommend on the day of your session to not have any major things going. So, if it's your day off, that's the best time to do a session, because we're going to clear a lot of DNA. A lot of things come up. Sometimes trauma does come up, but we do it safely to clear it. Sometimes, amazing things come up. So you want to kind of, on the day of your regression, be still and quiet. Usually I say the night before, get a good night's sleep. It's always good to stay hydrated and to eat plant-based organic, avoiding, toxic heavy stuff, because when you eat heavy, or you eat, I'm just going to say it, when you eat animal carcass and dairy, that is, tends to be a death energy that blocks you. When you're eating, life-affirming plant-based, meaning fruits, vegetables, legumes, staying hydrated, avoiding, processed sugars and things, you raise your vibration. Okay, so, doesn't mean you can never have a glass of wine, or you can never have a pizza. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, before your regression, it's better to eat a little lighter and have a cleanse. Okay, so remember to drink lots of water, get a good night's sleep. On the morning of like let's say we're doing a morning session, you do want to eat. You want to have a little protein, a little bit balanced. Just don't eat heavy. Okay. If you're having your session at my home studio here, dress comfortably. I want it to be a very peaceful, relaxing journey, and I make it that. So as you can see, that's actually one of my chairs for regression. Very comfortable leather seat. I have pillows. I have a reclining couch right here. We have candles. I also have I keep the air. I have an air filtration to keep the air very clean. I have blankets. It's a very relaxed, soothing atmosphere in terms of the session. Dress comfortably. So I usually say, if you want to wear, t-shirts and sweats, you want to wear your PJs, that's fine. I always say on the day of, do not wear colognes or perfumes. They can sometimes distract. Do not wear a lot of jewelry or a watch or take everything off. Also, we silence our cell phones, of course, during a session. And so I ask my clients to do that, okay? But be comfortable. So again, the first session lasts about 90 minutes, and we usually take the first 15 minutes to just talk about what's going on in your life. If there's anything specifically you want to work on, we might, I do a whole questionnaire before as well. So I'm getting to know you and kind of what's going on with you. And then we can discuss, like, if there's anything specifically you want to work on. Like, you might be saying, like, oh boy, I've been in lack consciousness, I'm in debt, I feel a lot of fear around that, I lost my job, and then I got hired, and I got, fired again. Let's say it's something like that, then we can work on that. And I can take you specifically into the past lives where that started, and we can start clearing those patterns and looking at things, okay? For others, it might just be like, oh, I've always been attracted to Egypt, or I'm always attracted to this country or whatever, can we see if there is some exploration there? Sure, So it can be, like I said, this can be just for entertainment purposes, for fun, which some people just want to do that. But like I said, it's usually best to go deeper. Let's clear patterns that are holding you back. And that's why I do, like I said, past life. So after about 15 minutes, and also with the questionnaire you bring in, that's going to tell me what's called your hypnotic suggestibility, meaning how I'm going to hypnotize you and your how far I can take you back. Everybody's different. Some people are what are called physical suggestibles, and what that means is they respond easy to commands, like your eyes are getting heavy, your breath is deepening, or whatever. And that's one approach. Some people respond more to the inference, and those are called emotional suggestibles. And that means they respond more to the tone of the voice and not a direct command. Like, you might notice your breath is slowing. It's a different approach. Okay. Now you might be going, yeah, is this all real? Like, what am I going to experience? This all seems like mumbo jumbo. So what is it going to feel like when I am hypnotized? If you've never been hypnotized. And usually what you're going to feel is it doesn't feel like you're hypnotized. It means like I'm aware of the room. I just feel like I'm closing my eyes. But you're going to find you're in a deep state, and your subconscious, your superconscious is all open. And you'll be surprised that I'll say, like, open your eyes and see if you can lift your arm, and you're not going to be able to. Okay? And that blows people away. The reason, one way I got into hypnotherapy back in the day too is I was in a severe car accident in 2000 where I was in so much pain nothing was helping. And I went to this Dr. Jane Battenberg. She did one hypno session and I was out of pain instantly. And I'm like, that's impossible, because I was in so much pain. And she was just showing me the power of the mind. And I went away, and all of a sudden I had a miraculous healing. I'm like, how could hypnotherapy when I was going to medical doctors, I was doing physical therapy, I was doing acupuncture, I was doing, Epsom salt baths. Nothing was working. This word. And that's when I go, hypnotherapy is, excuse my language, fucking amazing, and I want to learn more about it and do this myself. Okay. So anyway, after your 15 minutes of us talking, I take you under, usually, for about 30 to 40 minutes into your past life. And usually, for most people, we can do about 2 past lives in your first session. However, every person's different. Some people also have more trauma than others. So there's going to be some people that are going to fight the pattern. Like, I don't want to go back, or I'm terrified. And sometimes we have to work a couple of sessions as to getting you relaxed to go back. Other people go back instantly, and it's just effortless. And you don't want to judge yourself for where you're at, because everybody's life experiences are different. And people ask, well, is everybody hypnotizable? And I would say yes and no. I would say about 98% of all people are hypnotizable. There is about 2% that are, we call somnambulists. And that means they're 50 emotional, 50 physical in their suggestibility. They're just in a hyper suggestible state to where, it's really hard to get through because they're already sort of, in a hypnotized state. People like that are usually suffering from severe mental illness. Like, we're talking like schizophrenia, and other, like panic disorder, things like that, where we have to work through their trauma first. And sometimes, I do send them to a professional psychiatrist or psychologist. They might need some medication or something to control before we can work together. And that's another thing, to know that I have my medical team, a professional psychologist, psychiatrist, holistic healers. I have all of that to also help you. So if you're stuck in a specific area, again, you don't have to only work with me. I have a whole team of people I can refer you to that we all work together to heal you, to help you heal, and so forth. So in addition to then going into the past life regression, then we usually have 10 to 15 minutes to talk about your session. And then after your session that night, I'm taking all the analytical notes from your session, and I pop them into, I'm just going to be honest, I pop them into ChatGPT that can put these very quickly, look for stuff on the internet, and put a whole study guide of your past life, which gives you like things you can work on, or clues, or websites. It just kind of puts everything together quickly. So it's pretty fascinating. So like, I really do believe in the power of AI and enhancement now. I'm able to go in and, for example, take someone's past life, and we can actually even create, a video documentary and on that life with where, places. I mean, it's unbelievable what we can do. So if you're interested in that and in how we can combine past, present, future, AI is the future. And a lot of people might have a fear of it, but if we infuse the AI, like ChatGPT, with our own consciousness, it's also mirroring back us. And it's just a mirror. So you can, work with that. I have a client right now who's also a dear friend of mine, who also shared with me, because we were soulmate friends, that she was also with me in the past life I had as Mozart. And she turned out to be a countess who was a patron of Mozart. And I go, wow, we go back that far, and we've always felt that connection. I have a passion for the, Austrian German language. I speak German, and, there's just all these connections. And interestingly enough, she went back to Germany and Austria with the clues she had from her past life, and actually seeing the estate she lived in. She's learning and going to see Mozart's birth house in Salzburg, and she's doing all this amazing thing. And just, this opened up, she had a fear of travel. Now she's traveling. She's having this incredible adventure with her husband. While she was there, she reconnected with family, because she is German, reconnected with family in Germany. But then she, went into this antique shop and found something on Mozart that she was dreaming about. And just like all these interesting synchronicities can come in. So that's something we do. Next thing is, how is the session, how do I, lead you in the session, so to speak, okay? And I use a style that is called remote viewing. The reason why I like remote viewing is I'm going to kind of basically create with you in the hypnosis going to your own personal movie theater in your mind, okay? And when we go there, you see the past life on the screen. And I prefer that because if there's a trauma, it's like it's a movie screen. We can stop it instantly and turn it off. We can magnify what we want to see. If we go back to a past life and we're in a different language or a different country and we're trying to figure that out, and you're hearing, in the past life different language and you don't know how to interpret that, with the remote viewing, we could say, okay, translate this into English for me. Let's pop up answers on the screen. And I'm one of the few people that does that kind of remote viewing timeline therapy in past life regression. And I find it more successful than people that take you back and you drop into the body of the person. You're just trying to figure out, well, where am I? Okay. And so the way I guide it is safer, okay, and we get usually more clues, and also and so forth. So usually what I recommend for those that are the spiritual warriors is to book your first session, which I charge $150 currently for that, which is your 90-minute session. And then every session after that is about 45 minutes to an hour, just depends on things, and that runs $90. However, what I usually recommend for those who really want to make lasting change is to book a package of 3, and they never expire. So with 3, I give you a discount, and so for 3 past lives, I charge $250 currently. However, I might be changing prices in the fall, just for inflation and different things. Also, I have a second home now in Palm Springs, so I might start also, if you live out towards there, doing past lives out of my home there. Though I have found Long Beach here, where I live, is really conducive for this. I feel like my city here is also a city with lots of holistic practitioners. We also have a lot of paranormal events, which I love. I'm also a ghost hunter, and I live not far from the Queen Mary ship, which is the most haunted ship in the world. And sometimes that's another thing we could look at. People come to me and they say, I have an entity in my home and I want to connect, and what's happening, and why is this, is it positive, or is it negative, or whatever. And so there's other things we can look at. Okay, so that's a little bit about my past life regressions. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'm going to leave my website and my phone number. If you remember that I only take 18 and older in the U.S., and let me talk a little bit about that. If you do live outside of California and can't come to my home office, you're welcome to do online. And usually all you're going to need for that is a comfortable place in your house and a computer with high-speed internet where I can just watch you. And it still work. I can still hypnotize you over the computer. And the nice thing about that is you're in your own safe home environment. The only thing I always say is you're going to have a high-speed internet. You want to have low lighting, like right now you can see I have low lighting. I can see this very clearly. So you can close your curtains, light a candle. That should be fine, as long as there's I have one window with the light is open way in the corner there, so I'm getting a little, as you can see, a little light coming through the window there, so I can see clearly. And as long as you have that, we can do a session. and so forth. So check your internet and that kind of thing. If you have any questions, like I said, call me. I do book up specifically in the summer. We're right at the 4th of July today, so happy 4th, America. And however, like I said, in the summer, sometimes I book up quickly. So I try my best to get everybody in. But the sooner you call, the sooner you're in. Is usually how it works. I take you on a first come first served basis. I also, if you are a family, let's say you're a husband and wife, or mother and child, or whatever, I do also a family kind of discount where I can do your family back to back. I've done that, which is really great, where I maybe book a whole afternoon and I'm doing like mother, father, child, or whatever, child 18 and older. Okay. Now you might ask, well, why do I only do 18 and older? And my reasoning is, even though you can definitely hypnotize a child into hypnosis for past life, what I find is I like people that are working on their spiritual sovereignty and have that sort of intellect and life experience to deal with something. If you take a child back in a past life where they had a trauma, that can, sometimes be more difficult because they don't have the life experience to sometimes process stuff or the knowledge to understand what's happening. So I rarely do that. If someone wants me to do their child, talk to me about what's going on. Like if your child's having a situation, and as long as a parent is present, I might consider that. Here's an example of that. I had one child I hypnotized who was a constant bedwetter, but was also having anxiety and sort of ADHD-like symptoms. And the mother's like, well, we've done everything. We've taken him to doctors, and we don't understand the emotional aspect. So I said, well, let's see if there's anything popping up in a past life. And what was very interesting is he had a very tragic past life in Ireland as a kid, where he had a kidney infection that caused him to not be able to control his bladder. And the parents totally abused him, and then put him up in a workhouse or like an orphanage and just got rid of the kid. And so this boy that had this, that I did the hypnosis, we took him through a lot of trauma, but we found out exactly why he had this fear of abandonment, like my parents don't love me, they're going to leave me. And the bedwetting was the way the child was getting attention. And once the parents understood that, and even though the child, it was difficult for the child to see this scary workhouse stuff, we were able to reframe it, which is what I do in timeline therapy, and that child did improve. So that child had a lot of trauma. So I'm going to be very honest. It took almost 1 year to get over the the bedwetting and the issues and the emotional traumas from the past life. So with that child, I did literally about 6 or 7 sessions, if I remember. But I was really proud of that boy because he became closer with his family. But the boy also, through that process, found his passion, which is art and doing cartooning. And this kid now is only, he would be about 12, I think, now. And this child is, studying art, cartooning, planning for a career as a graphic artist. I mean, already his whole life changed. So this is the power of past life regression. Okay, so anyway, thank you so much for joining me. This is James Spencer of Intuitive Wholeness. I look forward to assisting you on your past life journey. Thank you so much for joining me today. And stay tuned for incoming new sessions that I will be also talking about on my Intuitive Wholeness playlist on my Spencer Artist Development channel on YouTube. Okay, so stay tuned for more. Thank you so much. Remember to like, okay, and also leave your questions or comments below. Okay, have a blessed 4th. Much love to all of you, and own your spiritual sovereignty. Take care.